Coming up on the exciting Season 2 finale of That Was a Show, Brynn, Aaron, and Barry celebrate the end of an incredible second season of That Was a Show. They watch and review 3 very successful sitcoms from the 90s that may or may not be forgotten today. And you'll have to listen to find out which ones. They also present the second annual TWASies Awards to some of the shows and characters discovered over the past year, including the Baddest Badaptation Award, the Best Betty White Award, the Schlubbiest Dad, and of course the highly prestigious Hunkiest Deadbeat Award. Stay tuned. We grew up during peak sitcom, Seinfeld, Friends, The Fresh Prince, but those shows were diamonds in the rough. This podcast is not about those diamonds. It's about the rough. Some sitcoms were briefly popular in their time. Some were canceled almost immediately. You probably won't recognize most of these, and you'll ask, that was a show?
That was a show?
The podcast about failed or forgotten sitcoms from the 80s and 90s, starring
Brynn Byrne,
Aaron Yeger,
And Andrew Helmer as Barry.
a Radio Gizmo production.
Let's hit it.
Hello, wonderful listeners. Welcome to our grand finale of Season 2. This is Brynn, and I'm here, as always, with my co-hosts, Barry and Aaron.
Hello. We are here together in studio, and welcome, Barry. Thank you for joining us in person.
I feel like it's weird to be like, thanks so much for having me on my own podcast. But yeah, it's really good to be here in person with you guys. This is the first in-person recording we've had since God knows when. If I'm closer, you can hear all my breathing. Whenever I get closer, I can hear every breath that I take.
That's okay.
Yeah. And every
Every
move
breath
that
you
I
take.
And every move that I make.
I'll be watching you.
I know you will. You'll be watching my
creepy.
levels.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
That's what that song's really about.
It's really about
It's not nearly as creepy
No.
as people thought it was.
No. It's about studio levels. It's
Yeah.
about
Okay, you
audio
gotta leave that. You
engineering.
gotta leave that in.
That's
We're
some
leaving
good-
all of this in.
Yeah.
It's going on it's going in the cast. Going in the cast. Well,
So,
here we are.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Can you believe that we finished a whole other season?
So I was looking online, and it looks like the first episode of season 2 was May of 2021.
I think.
So
I think we released it in June. We might have.
June.
I think we recorded it in May and released it in June.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't make it any leaks. That only
Yeah.
makes it like marginally less ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, this was an especially long season, like lots of hours of sitcom viewings. Yeah, I mean, it was not short. It took us a while to get where we are now, but I'm happy we are. Like, I think we kind of like as our second season rolled out, the world opened up a little more, so it became more difficult to sort of be as on track as we were with season 1.
Yeah, our various actual jobs got
Yeah.
busier.
Yeah.
I became a bit more of a free-ranged Barry.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but we're so glad that, so many of you continued to listen because I think, we've got, even though our scheduling may not have been as great, I think we've gotten pretty damn good at putting this thing together,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I didn't see this in your notes, so sorry if I'm stepping on this. But I think it's also exciting to say that this is the 50th episode.
Yes.
Of the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I'm happy that we've made it this far.
Yeah.
So from basically Badaptations and spin-offs to countless mentions of one Miss Phoebe Buffay, we're thrilled that you've all joined us for this ride every 2 weeks or every month or however often we've managed to do this. So, let's get into it. Let's get into this finale.
Yeah, we're halfway to syndication.
It's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We're about a season away from adding in like a cousin character.
There's no cousin Olivers allowed.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. So
So, yeah, what are we watching this week, guys?
As you know, this podcast is about failed or forgotten sitcoms from the 80s and 90s. But we also frequently talk about some other sitcoms from that period that, while not hugely popular today, were actually very successful at their time, and simply too well known to be part of our official canon. So today we're going to do something a little different and watch and talk about 3 of these successful shows, and shows that, maybe have come up in a lot of our conversations before.
All right, so with that in mind, what's the first show that we watched?
So our very first show is going to be Wings.
Woo.
And I'll tee up a little bit of info about the show before we watch it all together. Wings is an NBC sitcom that ran for 8 seasons from 1990 to 1997. It's set at a fictional airport on the island of Nantucket, which is south of Cape Cod in Massachusetts, a place I can only assume is brimming with chowder.
Chowder.
The show is about people who work at this little airport, including the brothers/pilots, Joe and Brian Hackett, played by Tim Daly and Steven Weber, who own Sandpiper Air. Crystal Bernard plays Helen, their friend since childhood, and Joe's wife, who ran the lunch counter at the airport. And I'm not going to list absolutely everyone on the cast, but I'd rather cut to the chase with the 2 biggest breakout characters, which include Lowell the mechanic, played by Thomas Hayden Church, who we talked about recently for our episode about the show, which was something like Tom and Marcy.
It's Ned and Stacy.
Frank and Cindy.
It's Ned and Stacy, you fool.
Whatever. So he's in the show. And and last but most certainly not least, Tony Shalhoub as the taxi driver Antonio. Wings was created by the same team behind Cheers and later Frasier, and actually exists in the same fictional universe, with the occasional crossover. When I was a kid, it seemed to be on in syndication absolutely all the time. Anytime I turned on the TV, I'd happen upon Wings, but I actually have not watched it at all since. So for a show that made it 172 episodes, it has largely disappeared off the radar. That's an aviation joke.
I got it, folks. Yep.
But I think it is worth reconsideration, so let's give it a watch.
Let's do it.
Okay. There better be some Shalhoub in this.
I don't think there is because it's the pilot.
Ugh.
Yeah, because he's in later.
So that was the Wings pilot.
It sure was.
Wungs.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would say a lot of it fell kind of flat for me, but it did okay for a pilot, and the funny bits were genuinely funny.
Yeah.
It was cute. It had enough going for it that, like, I mean, it ended on a cliffhanger, which for a pilot, I mean, if we weren't busy, I would want to watch more.
Because, you want to find out how it was resolved.
I could see how that could, that would have worked on audiences then, too, because it was just good enough.
Yeah.
That you were like, okay, I'll see you next week. And then you really just got to do that.
I would have liked for it to end on the high note of that gag, though.
It was good.
That was the funniest part of the whole episode.
Yeah.
So, real brief for our audience here. The plot is very simple. They establish all the characters. The 2 main characters are these 2 brothers. They're both pilots. And it turns out that both of them had relationships in the past with the same woman, one after the other. And one of them is still very much hung up on her, and he's trying to win her back. And he sees this opportunity where she's got a connecting flight nearby in Boston. So he figures if he manages to hightail it over from Nantucket to Boston, he can meet up with her in the 4 hours that she's there and somehow win her back. And yeah.
So he agrees to meet her on top of the Prudential building in Boston, and she does not show up naturally, but she does send a cab driver in her place who is just like a delightful character who just, it's a gag I've seen on many occasions, including very funny on Seinfeld on one occasion where somebody sends somebody, it's a little stupid because it's, the joke of it is it's just, 2 men talking. So it's a little bit of an old fashioned joke.
Yeah.
But like the dead deadpan delivery of like this cab driver letting Steven Weber's character down gently and saying
delivering
like,
the message in
we
character.
had our time together. It was beautiful, but it's past. And like, it's the kind of joke that, like describing it, I'm like, super lazy. But the actor just sells the hell out of it.
Yeah, he's very funny.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a new joke. It's not an especially innovative joke, but that might have been the best rendition of that type of performance that I've seen.
Yeah.
That guy nailed it. That cab driver nailed it.
Luther Talbot, remember me fondly.
Yeah, he says that too. It was cute. I mean, overall, I was like not that like engaged. Like I was like, like this is the kind of thing that could play in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but it was like, I feel like I remember watching Wings as a kid, and I feel like I enjoyed it back then. But like it would be one of those shows that I wouldn't have to watch every week. It would just be like you'd catch it occasionally.
You could dip in and out of this and not feel like you need to keep up with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like you said, Barry hit the nail on the head when we were watching it, that it feels a lot like Cheers in an airport.
It's Cheers in an airport. Yeah. It's exactly Cheers in an airport.
Similar to like John Larroquette's show, as you guys like mentioned.
Yeah, which was darker, but also kind of Cheers in a bus station.
Cheers in a bus station.
What I will say though is knowing now that these are the creators behind Cheers and later Frasier, the comedy banter feel, the way that like the dynamic between the characters feels of the Cheers world. But what's interesting is the way it's shot feels like a proto Frasier.
Yeah, I can see that a little.
The camera compositions and the pacing of it started to feel like it's kind of starting to
we're
veer
moving into the 90s.
Veer into,
we're moving into the 90s now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, kind of like slightly more innovative lighting and camera work that you start to get in the 90s compared to the 80s. It's starting to test those waters.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, like watching it made me a little nostalgic for the kind of sitcom that aired a lot more. The Cheers type, like this is a stage play. We all hang out in the same thing and bounce off each other. Like that kind of stuff. I didn't realize, there really isn't any of that on TV anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's also like I would say the best use of 3-camera sitcoms if you're going to do about this. Something where the performances of people actually interacting with each other live like that really do pay off.
Right.
Whereas like, most like Seinfeld doesn't need to be 3-camera and Friends doesn't need to be 3-camera. Like you could do all of those as single camera shows and not really miss anything. But this kind of thing, like, and the same with Cheers. Like Cheers is great because it's all of these actors all on a set together. Like throughout this whole pilot, there's 20 people in this room at all times.
Yeah. And I know that they shoot multiple takes sometimes in shows like this.
Yeah.
But when you're watching it, it truly kind of feels like it's happening in real time.
Yeah.
Like it really feels like the 23 minutes that this lasted took 23 minutes to shoot.
so many of these episodes were bottle episodes before that was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that was just what the show was.
Yeah.
And that's fun. That's fun,
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing, mostly it's in one set, which is like the main room of this airport. There's a little bit that's kind of in an airplane hangar with the mechanic working on the plane. It was a nice touch that they actually had a real plane. And I did a bit of research on the show, and they had a particular hero plane that they used as a prop, fully functional plane. Apparently there are episodes where it flies and they have a real pilot fly the plane.
Oh, wow.
Like it's a functional thing. And that plane, at least at the time that this was written, like that the research on Wikipedia was written, that plane had been then like resold after the show and is still in operation.
Oh, that's
like
so
someone
interesting.
owns and flies that same
I
plane.
own the plane from Wings.
Yeah, that'd be
and like
fun.
And everybody's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. It adds to, it adds to the realism of it. I mean, I always like little touches like that. Like I think back on like like Scrubs shot in a closed down hospital, and like it pays off for the realism of the show, right?
Yeah, yeah. And there was a lot of like background chatter and sound design,
Mhm.
and there were a lot of background actors to populate the space at the airport. And they weren't doing that stupid thing that I was complaining about in the show maybe this time, where it's like they're all paying attention to the main characters.
Yeah.
Everyone's just going about
They're
their
going
business.
about their business. Like it,
Yeah.
it
Which
felt more
is,
real.
yeah, what people do in life.
Like in Cheers, when there'd be people in the back of the bar just drinking and they're not in on the gag.
Yeah.
They're just at a table drinking.
Yeah, it's sort of an interesting thing, like these types of sitcoms where it's technically it's like a workplace comedy,
Yeah.
but it's not an office. It's a place
Yeah.
where random people are going to be, where it's like a public space.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it's more of a public space than like a private like office,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's sort of a smart thing for people to, you know, write, because it opens the door for like lots of potential you know, it's not like a bottle, you know, with like shows like The Office and things like that, you're kind of limited to the people that are there, whereas if
Right.
you set it in an airport or if you set it in a bar, there's like lots of room for like random hijinks from
people to
random
come through the door and who's this
Yeah.
person?
guest stars and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the kind of show that I could have on in the background, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
I feel like, it's interesting that, you know, there isn't a lot of, you know, it doesn't show up on a lot of streaming services because, it would be a pretty easy.
yeah, no one's talking about Wings.
Nobody's talking about
Yeah.
Wings.
Well,
8 seasons.
Yeah, 8 seasons, and you know, it's not one
You
of
know.
those shows. It's not like a Seinfeld. It's not like a Friends.
No.
It's like it's just kind of there, and
it wasn't then either. Like it was
Yeah.
always on. It always did fine, but it was
Yeah.
never like a darling.
yeah, it was never like the must-see TV,
I
like
think it
water
was-
cooler show.
I think it was part of Must See TV, or was it?
Well,
I don't know.
I'm not talking about the brand. I'm talking about the
like whether it
concept.
actually was.
It,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
never the show where you were
It
like,
wasn't a
"Hey, did you
yeah.
guys catch Wings last night?" And
Yeah.
start talking about the
Yeah,
plot.
no,
Like,
it wasn't a
it's
water
just sort
cooler
of-
show.
Yeah.
just
So this doesn't
yeah.
have, you know, so, you know, for people out there who don't know the show, like, you know, this was airing at the exact same time as Friends, as Seinfeld, as Frasier, as Will and Grace.
Mm-hmm.
All of these shows are things that did have a lot of cultural cachet.
Yeah.
Where this one ran just as long as any of them and does not really have any relevance to
Yeah.
it.
So I guess we could definitely put it safely in the forgotten category, you know?
Yeah, I think
It's not failed. It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
forgotten, though.
And I would say that for all 3 of the shows that we have selected, I think an argument could be made for forgotten.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think so too.
all of the shows are shows that people know exist, but don't really have much,
yeah.
like, it's not going to come up
Mhm.
unless you host a podcast about sitcoms.
Yeah.
I mean, who would do that?
Yeah.
Who would create a
Yeah.
sitcom podcast?
But again, like what's funny to me about this is watching it, it absolutely feels like it slots in between Cheers and Frasier.
Yeah.
Like as a creative process in the evolution of sitcom style,
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
can see it as a perfect puzzle piece slotting in between those two shows.
So yeah, a good point is, I would also, Yep, I would watch this. I would have this on in the background. This is a fine background show. Because you can tell, like, it's a pilot, and pilots are usually kind of rough and they're getting the kinks out. You can tell that this cast could do more.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like a lot of the roughness of it are things that would be solved just, 12 episodes later.
I have like the most random memories of this show.
Mhm.
Like I remember little moments. Like I remember an episode where they were going to go see the play Rent on Broadway.
Okay.
Because it was like, right in the middle of that epic run where Rent was like the biggest show on Broadway and they were supposed to go see it. And the character, Crystal Bernard's character there, what's her name? Helen. Is it Helen?
She looks like a Helen.
Anyway, she really wants to go see it. She's dying to go see it. And I think they miss it. There's some reason that there's some problem with them getting to go see the like Rent. And there's another episode where they're they're renovating or something. And then again, the Helen character's hair is all like, it starts off as this very neat French braid because that was the hot hairstyle at the time. And by the end, it's all out and frizzy and is like out of control. So it's like I have weird memories of that particular actor because she just had such like distinctive 90s hair that's like the biggest thing that I remember. It's just, and then their clothes. Like, I mean, just watching now, I felt so distracted by the pleats in Tim Daly's pants. Like it was very,
Timothy Daly.
Timothy Daly, not Tim Daly. Excuse me.
He lost the uffy at some point.
Yeah. But then I also remember there's an episode where they go to their childhood family home. And I don't remember the context. I don't know anything. I just remember an extended scene where they're talking about a window seat. And like there's like all this like importance of this like window seat. So it's kind of strange. Now I feel like weirdly compelled to like rewatch a bunch of these episodes to like find those specific weird memories and like get the context.
The biggest thing I can remember from it is just the existence of Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah.
And that mechanic character.
Yeah. And then eventually Tony Shalhoub's character was very distinctive.
I didn't watch much of it, but I remember Steven Weber because like he was an actor, like he has such a unique energy that I've always liked Steven Weber.
Yeah.
And like honestly, no matter what he's in, I don't know why, but the thing that I always go back to remembering him in is he was in the ABC or NBC. I can't remember who did it. They did a miniseries version of The Shining.
The Shining, yeah.
And they filmed it in the hotel that the Overlook was based on, the one in Maine or
that
whatever.
That was the one that was like truer to the
closer to the novel.
Yeah,
closer to the novel. And Steven Weber plays Jack Torrance.
He
and
does.
It's
an
interesting performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tim Daly was Superman. As I always remember, he's the as Kevin Conroy is to Batman nerds what the voice of Batman sounds like. Tim Daly is what Superman's voice sounds like.
Oh, yeah. I just remember when the movie Sideways came out, thinking, "Hey, it's the guy from Wings."
That's what we all said.
Yeah,
that's literally what we all said.
Yeah.
And wow, the guy from Wings is a good drama actor.
He's fucking hilarious in that, though.
Yeah.
He is, but like genuine, like sincere.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
I could watch that.
All right. Is this enough about Wings?
I think it's enough about Wings.
We're done. We're done with you, Wings.
So what are we doing now?
All right. So let's fly off to the next show.
Fuck.
Okay. So we'll move on to my pick, the Brynn pick. And,
all right.
I mean, you guys know what I picked. I picked, none other than Mad About You, since we've mentioned it many times.
And who is in Mad About You?
Well, one of the characters, and the reason why I've chosen Mad About You is because of one Miss Ursula Buffet, played by our favorite Lisa Kudrow. But she's legitimately our favorite. Like the other things that I was using some heavy sarcasm earlier, but no, legitimately Lisa Kudrow is one of our favorites. But yeah, I chose Mad About You because you guys would always get annoyed with me when I would bring it up in 6 Degrees of Friends. So I thought, why not like get you even more annoyed by making us cover it? I'll just briefly remind everyone out there what Mad About You is about. It's really actually not about much, to be honest. So Mad About You aired for 8 seasons on NBC from 1992 to 1999. It was created by Danny Jacobson and Paul Reiser. It starred Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt as Paul and Jamie Buckman, a middle-class New York couple. The show isn't really about anything except for Paul and Jamie making a go of it at what many of us millennials call adulting. And they're really quippy while they do it. So that's pretty much it. Ursula Buffet is a server at Riff's Restaurant, which is like a local restaurant that the Buckmans frequent. So that's kind of how she's a reoccurring character. Like she's kind of often pops in and out of episodes. Like the character's sister Phoebe, Ursula is a bit on the eccentric side and spacey. But, unlike Phoebe is like very bohemian and, as many remember, she has like a very distinctive personal style. Like she's kind of like what we call like a boho kind of style with like kind of bright colors and unique outfits. Ursula's very low key, and Ursula's often in all black. And there's tons of crossover between Mad About You and Friends because it's in the same universe, much like we just mentioned with Wings. Wings is in the same sort of TV universe as Cheers and Frasier. Friends and Mad About You have the same connection. So there were lots of like silly gags where, you know, I think there was an episode of Friends where Paul and Jamie Buckman end up at Central Perk and they run into Phoebe and there's a misunderstanding because they think it's Ursula, and then Phoebe's like acting like put off because she doesn't know who they are, and they're like, you know, like, what's wrong with her? Why is she acting like she doesn't know us? And, you know, like, it's like, haha, you know, it's like, but clearly like she could have just mentioned that's like my twin because it's an obvious reason why someone would, you know.
Yeah, but Phoebe.
But Phoebe is also a space cadet, like, you know, like Ursula. So, yeah, so there's crossover. I think there might have been, like, Phoebe might have shown up in Mad About You as well. Interesting thing is that Ursula came before Phoebe.
Well, I mean, really, the whole thing is just them explaining why this actress is on who is already on another sitcom on NBC.
But I found it interesting that like they made them sisters, like they made them Buffet and Buffet, like because they actually like, use the same last name and everything.
Yeah,
and So without further ado, let's
give it a watch.
NBC loved doing that because there's also a reference to Kramer having subletted from Paul.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, they don't appear in Seinfeld, but there's a Kramer appearance in because he actually appears there, I think.
I think so.
Like super briefly, but yeah. All right, let's give it a watch.
Here we go.
All right, so Mad About You, Ursula Buffet.
Yeah.
Boom. Done.
That was pretty much the perfect episode to watch because we chose an episode from season 5 of Mad About You. It was episode 21 from season 5. And basically, Jamie and Paul are expecting their first child. They're trying to choose a guardian for their child in case anything were to ever happen to them. And you know, there's like this kind of like that's the A plot of the episode. And basically they're having a hard time having anyone in their lives commit to it. And there's, you know, a lot of the time is spent at riffs where they basically bring their loved ones to like get them to commit.
Where they take all the meetings.
Yeah, they take all the meetings for this like big guardianship question. And the fun thing is when they arrive at riffs, the first scene at riffs, Ursula is there, and the implication is that she hasn't been around much
in a long time.
Yeah, because at this point, Friends has been running for a long time, so clearly Lisa Kudrow wouldn't have had time to guest star on Mad About You that much. So it's kind of like, it's like a big reveal when she turns around that she's there.
There's a good little joke of like where they're basically asking what happened to her. And she says she what was it like she
got kicked out of her apartment
and had to move,
which has nothing to do with her job.
And then they're like, you know, where are you staying? And she's like, oh, with friends.
Yeah, so it's like, So yeah, so it's kind of funny because like Ursula is just, you know, very spacey and like keeps having these like awkward moments with them because they're trying to like get more information from her, and she's just like giving them like one word answers, and it's just like very like awkward. And she also doesn't remember them at all, even though she used to, they were like regular customers for like the earlier seasons, and she obviously should know who they are, and she like completely has no idea who they are. And yeah, so it's funny. And then she gives them the wrong orders, like the usual kind of like ditzy waitress jokes that you see in a lot of sitcoms. But I don't know, it's quite funny the way she pulls that kind of those kind of bits off like no one else.
Yeah. I was laughing
Basically.
quite a lot in the first scene,
Yeah.
and I really liked the tone they hit with these performances. And when I think of this show, this was the show when I was a kid that my parents were always watching, and
Yeah.
I never watched. Like,
Yeah.
I'd catch
Yeah.
a minute or two here and there,
Yeah.
but I never really sat
Well,
down and
because,
watched
yeah.
it deliberately.
It is so low concept. It's literally just about a couple living in New York, but the fun bits about it come from just the funny writing, and
Yeah.
it's character driven. And okay, so we got to talk about the B plot of the episode,
Yeah.
which is the funniest part about it. Essentially, Jamie is very pregnant. She's like about to pop, and she's at the episode starts with her at one of her friends' places, and there's the younger brother of one of her friends at the same party, and they're watching Casablanca.
Seth Green.
Seth Green plays the younger brother, who's supposed to be only about 18 or 19 or something like that. And he is smitten with Jamie. He's like obsessed with her. He's
Gaga.
like
Mhm.
what? And it does get creepy. It definitely gets into creepy territory. But Jamie sort of finds it very amusing
yeah,
and
like
flattering.
she's 9 months pregnant,
Yeah.
so the whole joke is that she's just so
like,
like,
happy
yeah.
to get the
Yeah,
attention.
she's just like, still got it.
yeah.
Still got it.
I'm still a babe is what she keeps saying over and
Yeah.
over. And so he's giving her a lot of attention, and then he starts sending gifts over to their apartment. He knows that she's married, but he doesn't care. He keeps sending her these like Casablanca themed gifts. One being like a cardboard cutout of him, of Seth Green, dressed up like Humphrey Bogart's character in Casablanca with a talking bubble. What does a talking bubble say? Do you guys remember?
Oh, it just says like you
belong with
Yeah,
me or
yeah.
whatever. And then in the final scene, they Jamie and Paul are just out and about. They had just met up with Paul's sister and Paul's sister's partner, and they just got rejected by them as like a guardian, as a potential guardian. So they're feeling pretty terrible, and they're about to get back to their apartment, and there's this elaborate setup with
like an orchestra, like a bandstand,
like
and
a whole band, and there's a crowd that has formed because of the
oh, it's New York.
Yeah.
it's New York, so everyone's crowding around to see what's going
It's
on.
a
And in
fully
the middle,
populated New York street. There's like 75 people
and
there.
in the middle of the orchestra is the Seth Green character at a piano
White tuxedo.
in a white tuxedo,
And he's singing as time goes by.
and then he's like serenades Jamie with this backing band.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, she's finally had enough of his advances.
And Paul is so unbothered by the whole
Paul does
thing.
not care at all. He thinks it's kind of funny.
The
he's
best part of this episode is that he's not even the slightest whiff of jealous over this.
he does not care.
He's barely batting an eye. He's just
Yeah.
bemused.
Yeah. And like there's this she finally lets it completely lets him down. She's like, look, this is never gonna happen. You need to
Yeah.
give it up. And then he's like, okay. And he kind of and then he looks around at this group of people he's assembled to do this elaborate gesture. And he's like, oh, this was really expensive. But the way he says it,
Yeah, it's
the
so
delivery is
Yeah.
perfect.
And the whole rest of the scene, as they're having their conversation in
Yeah.
the foreground, you just see the band packing up behind them, legitimately putting instruments back in cases. And just
it's a very funny bit.
Yeah, it was. They took that bit as far as they possibly could, and
Yeah.
I was like, I don't remember this show taking bits
Yeah.
that far and being that funny. I remember this as the show, and this could be colored by that joke from Seinfeld. The whole joke that it's married couples that have settled down and they watch Mad About You, and that's not something you want to do if you're a cool person. And I'm
George, are you coming to bed? I taped Mad About You.
I like how your Susan impression is
it sounds
not
like
great.
Estelle Costanza.
hey,
Yeah.
I'm Susan over here.
It's more just a New Yorker impression.
But she totally didn't have. She was
No,
waspy, so
I
she didn't
know.
have that accent.
Whatever.
I-
The point is that I always found that scene
Yeah.
hilarious.
It is.
And
It is
even
a
as
hilarious scene
even as
in
a
Seinfeld,
kid,
yeah.
like as a 14-year-old, I found that scene hilarious because my parents watched Mad About You, and I could never relate to wanting to watch it.
Yeah.
But
watching it
watching it now,
it's like,
I'm like,
oh, it was quite funny.
you know what? I kind of want to watch this show.
Cut to two white people married in their 30s, and I guess you guys
Yeah.
Yeah, now that we're
fit the demographics.
We're the right demographic
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
I guess.
We're in our
city people, a married couple.
We're in our mid 30s, living married in a downtown apartment, and now I
Yeah.
really want to watch Mad About You.
Yeah.
At first, I thought you. I didn't realize you were just stumbling over that, but I thought you were claiming that you were in your mid 30s, and I was just like, "Oh my god, what does that mean?"
No, it was deliberate. It wasn't
mid.
It wasn't a
Mid, late,
stumble.
mid.
No.
I'm deliberately covering for how late into the 30s that I actually am.
He's on the edge.
Yeah, I don't know if you claim mid on you.
No, I know. But yeah, this show was funny. And obviously we're watching a late 5th season episode, which
Yes.
is when good sitcoms really have clearly hit their stride and they're firing on
Yeah.
1,000 cylinders. So
And they have money to
You know,
spend.
and they have the money.
They have money to burn.
With
yeah.
that whole setup. Like, I think half that joke was like, this was so expensive. It's
Yeah.
like, it's also a joke that bit was so expensive.
Yeah.
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 yeah. So I mean,
this
at
is
some-
all the background actors.
Yeah.
They actually shot
musicians.
location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So at some point, I am going to try watching this show from
Yeah.
the beginning. And
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see how long it took them to get to this
Yeah.
level of polish. Because obviously, this is like saying, I've never watched Seinfeld before. I'm going to jump in on the Marble Rye. Like, obviously, if you start at a point when it's at its
Yeah.
peak, then you're going to get a certain impression.
Well, it's
but
interesting because some shows don't, like a show like Friends starts pretty much firing. It starts firing right out of the gate, right? Whereas Seinfeld is great in the
Mhm.
early, but it does take its time. Like it
Mhm.
did need polish before it caught on. Right?
yeah. The
Yeah.
Seinfeld that most people think about
Yeah.
when they think about Seinfeld is like seasons 4 to 7, basically.
Yeah. Whereas like you now as Seinfeld fans, you can go back and watch them, and I very much like the early episodes, but
Well, yeah. When you're a
the
solid
polish
fan,
ain't there.
yeah, when you're a solid fan, you appreciate all of it.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's now like going, we can't go back in time, but like, I think that's probably what I would have chosen to do with Wings as well. Like, there's no reason for us to come in on a pilot of
Yeah.
a pilot of a pilot show.
Ha.
So
Do you
yeah,
think that joke ever happened in their production phase of that show? So we're shooting the pilot, starring a couple of pilots.
yeah, I get, yeah, I'm sure it did. I'm sure you got thrown right out of the writer's room.
Yeah,
for even
probably.
bringing it up.
Yeah.
So what do we think? Do you think this can somehow be in the TWAS canon? Like, I don't think it's definitely not failed.
No, they made a reboot,
It was
so
certainly
it's not
not-
forgotten.
It was
not
certainly
forgotten.
not failed. I would argue
Maybe
no,
it's
but I mean,
forgotten
it
by
is-
our age group.
and
you
people
know?
below us do not know what it is.
Right. So it's adjacent.
Yeah.
I think the main reason that it's sort of in the canon is because of the funny
Yeah, the Ursula.
Ursula buffet of it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, the question really is, how would it hold up against other similar pedigree shows of the time in terms of rewatchability? Like in a vacuum, if you did
yeah.
if you did a scientific experiment, if you basically dropped this and
Yeah.
a bunch of other shows onto Netflix and had a bunch of younger millennials and Gen Z people stream it for the first time and see which shows they kind of latched onto, I'd be just very curious if you did like a proper A/B test, like a scientific test. This
Yeah.
Mad About You versus Wings versus Frasier versus Cheers, like all of these sort of Gen X hangout shows,
Yeah.
just which ones would actually do well today?
See, I think one of the reasons why Friends is one of the ones that did take off in streaming is the same reason like The Office took off streaming as well. there's romantic angst,
Mm.
and there are like, whereas Mad About You is not gonna scratch that itch.
Right.
Yeah, they're a
The Jim
happily
and Pam
married,
fact.
married couple.
So that's and none of these like Cheers might. You know, there was a lot of will they won't they on Cheers, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah, who knows? I mean, it's definitely rewatchable, but I think the thing is, like, we would never think to rewatch it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Unless we had to. Like, this was like our reason to watch it was because we've talked about it so much.
yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't think we would ever set out to, like, you know,
we would
binge
not
it,
have. We would not have. But now I'm gonna try.
Now I'm gonna try. I agree.
Now that I'm the perfect target demo for Mad About You, I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
Mad About Shoe.
What is that from again?
That's from The Simpsons.
I couldn't remember.
Oh my
fuck!
God.
It's the Krusty on SNL, right?
Yeah, Krusty pitches a sketch called Mad About Shoe.
Yeah. All right.
All right, so
let's move on.
let's move on to our third show, Barry.
All right. So for the third one, I mean, I went with one that I have always considered to be a bad show. It is a show that I know was terrible, and it always, you know, sorry for people out there who are big fans of it, but it was on for so effing long that even at that time, I was baffled by it. Now, don't get me wrong. It is not because of the pedigree behind the show, because the cast and crew of this show are very good. I chose Just Shoot Me, which was, was created by an absolute powerhouse of a sitcom creator, Steve Levitan. It was detailed the daily lives of the staff of a popular fashion magazine. It lasted a staggering 7 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason why it did is because its cast, included some real comedic heavy hitters, right? You had Enrico Colantoni, Wendy Malick, David Spade, Laura San Giacomo, and George Siegel. And this show was always on.
Yeah.
The syndication deals this show had were just wild.
I'm so shocked that you found it to be so terrible, because I actually really liked Just Shoot Me.
Oh my God.
I was a fan.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Ooh, this is exciting.
I saw plenty of it. So that's not to say that I guess I did hate it. But I also watched enough of it because, as we've said before,
it was on
TV.
Okay, so my hot take, which will not surprise you in the slightest, you hated it, you liked it, I have never seen it.
Sounds about
Perfect.
right.
I am completely neutral and indifferent at this stage.
Yeah.
What we're about to do will be I agree, I was aware of it. I saw it in syndication all the time. I saw the logo, the opening credits, but I never sat down and watched an episode. Today will be the first time I actually watched a full episode of Just Shoot Me.
And I guess the reason behind us choosing it is I feel like we've never talked about it. So that was kind of the joke, right?
Yeah.
That we've talked about the other 2 shows, we've mentioned them, but we haven't mentioned Just Shoot Me. But I feel like as friends, we've talked about Just Shoot Me. So it's time we
for me, the reason
explored it a little bit.
The reason why I chose the show specifically was this show feels every bit in line with a TWAS
It does.
show.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that.
It lasted for 7 seasons.
Yeah.
So this is a show that I found it was really interesting that despite its syndication deals, despite it running for 7 seasons, it was nominated, it was nominated for Emmys and stuff like that. This show has no cultural significance whatsoever.
Yeah, nobody remembers it. Nobody talks
show.
About it. It is. It could go in the forgotten category for sure.
Yeah. And I do find it funny that, and as I was going through some of these things, I was like, there's a lot of shows from the 90s that lasted a very long time and were never spoken of again.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good.
And this is one of them.
This is one of them.
I think I'll probably be angling in the future to occasionally cover one of these shows because I think they have I'm Mad About You. I'm glad we watched it, but it's a show that didn't need us discussing it.
That's true.
To exist, right?
Yeah.
Wings is something interesting too because Wings is again lasted forever.
Yeah.
Not talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are really this is a good sampling because these are 3 shows that all lasted about the same amount of time as each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And none of them are talked about, but each for a kind of different reason.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
none of them are quite that similar to each other, even though they're all falling into
They're
the same
just
sort of
they're
territory.
just 90s
yeah.
sitcoms.
I do expect some problematic things from Just Shoot Me. I will say that.
I think from David Spade, you're probably gonna get some.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Okay.
I would like to watch season 3, episode 8. Why did I choose it? It's got Mark Hamill in it.
All right.
All right, so that was Just Shoot Me.
It was.
Yeah, it was. I take back some of my harsh comments. It was a very amusing episode. Again, pretty much thanks to like a really game cast. You know?
Yeah.
I while we were watching it, like very specifically, there were moments where like George Segal was just like killing me several times. Like George Segal's like line deliveries were great. Wendy Malick is always so funny.
Yeah.
Like she's enjoyable no matter where she is. She really is.
Yeah.
And Spade got some laughs too.
It's a very strong cast, and of course, this episode featured a cameo from Mark Hamill in an extremely self-deprecating format that was very funny.
Yeah, Mark Hamill played himself, and David Spade's character Dennis was an obsessive Star Wars fan who, he goes too far trying to get his attention in a restaurant, and Mark Hamill goes off on him, and it kind of embarrasses him a little in the restaurant. And then, the next day he shows up at Spade's work, and he wants to make it up to him and hang out with him. And he's hanging out with him so much throughout the week, and he's asking him incessant questions. And he's at some point you start cluing in that you're like, Hamill's kind of fucking with him.
Yeah.
But Mark Hamill's very, very funny. Like he also had some really great line deliveries. And it's like one of those things where like, I don't think Mark Hamill really ever gets to be funny. Like this is kind of the first thing I've ever seen where Mark Hamill was, he could have done a sitcom, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think he would
agree.
have, he still can.
Now that final twist joke though, where he reveals that he's been like pestering this guy for a whole week in his workplace, just in his day-to-day life to show how annoying it is.
Yeah.
I would have played the final bit of that differently, because David Spade's character, his reaction is, oh, so you're not crazy, and he slips right back into being a fanboy instead of being annoyed.
Yeah.
Whereas I would have played it as, so you had like an entire week of free time to devote to just proving a point to me out of spite. You realize that this means you're even crazier than I thought. I would have played that last line a little different.
But that's the Spade character is like, he's a character who never learns.
Right, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so having never seen this show before, I did laugh a fair bit.
Yeah.
The cast really impressed me. The pacing really impressed me. But in some ways, though, I still kind of find it forgettable. Like I didn't come out of this thinking...
Completely.
Yeah, like there's something about the setting, there's something about who the characters are, even if I like the performers, that I'm not craving watching more of this the way that I am with Mad About You.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting, because I have like the opposite reaction. There's something about like a magazine setting that I actually like find fun. And because I know more about the show, like I'm like, oh yeah, there's that dynamic and that dynamic. Like the whole thing of like it wasn't like
because Colantoni and Sanjay Giacomo, they have like a really good.
They have a will they or won't they?
And it's a relationship. It's a pretty good one.
And like the whole dynamic between her and her dad, like this is later, a little late, or not later in the series, but the whole thing is, Aaron, like with the Maya character and Jack, they were like estranged. Like they had like a bad father-daughter relationship. And at the start of the series, she goes to work for her dad with like out of like desperation. Like I think she's like needs a job really bad and goes to work for her dad, and they don't get along. And at this point in the series, they are getting along. So that dynamic isn't as interesting. And she is not that funny in this episode, whereas in other episodes,
Yeah.
She is generally the straight man in the series, but she also has moments where she's kind of pretentious, and that's like I think like her whole thing was she was like a poet. There was something with her where she was like a serious writer, like a serious and then it was like kind of she thought it was like a step down to work for a fashion magazine. Yeah. Like she's like, you know, so anyway, and she at the beginning tries to like change the magazine to make it something more serious, and it like doesn't go anywhere. But basically, yeah, like you're not seeing some of the more interesting dynamics. And the whole backstory with Nina is interesting because she was formerly like a supermodel, and like, you know, she's gone to work for the magazine, and you see a little bit of it in this episode where she is not always taken seriously.
She's sort of a consultant on the magazine now.
Yeah. But it's kind of a vanity role, you know, like where she's like getting, you know, she was like a very successful model, but now in her, you know, like at this point in her life, she kind of is a bit of a lush, and like there's like lots of jokes about her like sex life and stuff like that. And like this is again, like, well, not again, because you guys didn't hear this earlier comment, but like there's definitely a possibility that this series is more problematic than I remember because, you know, it's like, you know.
I remember there being a lot of gay panic jokes.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
But it was the mid-90s.
It was the like the late, I think it's like it was like mid to late 90s.
Yeah, I think it went from I think I said it earlier, but have already forgotten. I'm pretty sure it ran 97 to 2003.
Even a show set in a fashion magazine has gay panic jokes. Brutal.
Well, sure. There's no gay characters.
There's no gay
characters.
Oh,
like it's bad.
I mean, I'm sorry. If there's diehard Just Shoot Me fans out there, I'm sure there are some token gay characters. that show up on the show.
And you know, it's like it's not very representative of even what it probably would be at the time. Like it's like not a diverse
I will
bunch
say
of people.
It being owned by a rich white man is pretty representative.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess you're right.
And exploits
ownership wise, maybe, but like you'd think even then, like the staff would be a little different from what's being.
But it's a perfectly amusing show. But yeah, you're right. You're not getting a good flavor of like.
They're calling it fashion, but I think it's more Cosmo. It's more like Cosmo. It's more of a like, it's a sexy like women's magazine,
right? Because those little close-ups of the covers.
It's a Cosmo.
It is basically Cosmo.
Yeah, those are articles like Cosmo articles.
So it's not. It is fashion adjacent, but it's not strictly fashion. It's more of a lifestyle magazine.
I'm sure Cosmo at one point billed itself as fashion.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the things you described, like the dynamic with that, you know, father-daughter relationship and some of these other character dynamics, like they seem like things maybe that I would enjoy, or at least I would have at the time, but just having watched that.
You didn't get a good sense.
Something's not pulling me in based on the episode that we watched.
Later on, like Dennis marries Rebecca Romaine, like who's like she's not playing Rebecca Romaine, but Rebecca Romaine's playing like a model, this gorgeous woman who's like 2 feet taller than him, and he like they get together, so that's like a odd coupling. And then there's like like you heard the references to Jack having a much younger daughter. Right. Like Jack has been married a bunch of times and has a wife that's younger than his daughter Maya. And
it's fine.
Yeah, you know, it's all the stuff that you expect when you kind of go into that world of like a Manhattan magazine thing with some rich people and then some like artist types. Like it's going to have those kind of dynamics. But anyway, I feel like it is a bit of a forgotten show. Like I feel like nobody.
Oh, it's complete. It would be remembered by people our age, and that's about it.
Like it's one of those shows. I feel like there's like Just Shoot Me, News Radio, and Suddenly Susan that are all like kind of similar workplace comedy.
I'd throw Spin City in there.
Spin City, yeah.
Where it's like they were popular and people liked them and they were considered, well, like with like they had actors that were well reviewed and the writing was well reviewed, but they haven't stood the test of time. Like people are not still talking about them
And
now.
all of the shows you just listed are all shows that I refused to watch at the time.
You
so funny.
never watched News Radio?
News Radio is great, actually.
News Radio is fucking excellent.
News Radio is we should watch News Radio.
News Radio
Dave
is
Foley,
you're a Kids in the Hall fan? Like Dave
Yeah.
Foley's the lead.
I know, but there was something
Dave
about
Foley, Maura Tierney, Phil
Andy
Hartman,
Dick is in
Andy
it.
Dick,
Yeah.
Joe Rogan
is in it. Well, but
Yeah. It's great.
And,
It's great.
uh,
It's really.
Yeah, I
it's
don't know
really
how to
funny
explain
too.
it,
Yeah.
but there's something about a lot of the more like workplace comedies of that time
Yeah.
that just, and even now, I watch this, I laughed a lot, but there's something that just doesn't quite pull me in about those kinds of environments.
News Radio would have been more along the Seinfeld style of humor than
it was definitely more silly, definitely more you would have enjoyed the humor
you
of
think?
News Radio.
All right.
News Radio is legitimately awesome.
So at some point we'll do a little bonus episode where we'll watch News
please.
Radio.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Phil Hartman was so funny on News Radio.
Well, fair enough. I will give it a chance because of Phil Hartman.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. It's it's really sad because both News Radio and Suddenly Susan had cast members that died tragically, like Phil Hartman, obviously, and David Strickland from Suddenly Susan also had died.
Veronica's Closet. That's the other one we were all forgetting.
Veronica's Closet. Ugh, yeah, but that show, if you even read a little bit about it, it is a bad show.
Yeah.
Like it will not hold up. Like it is problematic.
No, it wasn't good then.
No.
David Strickland. Yeah, I didn't know that actor. Well, I didn't watch any. That one I'm an
He
Aaron
played
on.
like the mailroom
No,
guy.
I didn't see a single episode of Suddenly
Oh,
Susan.
okay.
Hmm.
You're not missing much.
What was she before?
Yeah, she was just, she
Was she a
wasn't Susan yet, I guess.
Did she go? Was she a Susie?
Yeah.
Well, this was a fun exercise watching these three different shows.
Yeah, I
back
agree.
to back.
I had fun with you guys.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. It's interesting looking at these three shows that all kind of fit that vibe in terms of where they exist in our memories
Mm-hmm.
and then comparing them. Yeah, interesting. Well, you know what time it is. It's time for what you may or may not have all been waiting for, the second annual TWASies Awards. Live from the living room couch of a rented townhouse in the West End of Toronto, it's the second annual TWASies Awards. Please welcome your hosts, Brynn Byrne, Aaron Yeger, and Andrew Barry Helmer. There are so many amazing nominees, including, of course, Tony Danza from Hudson Street, Tony Danza from Baby Talk, and of course, who can forget Mickey Rooney in One of the Boys? All right, let's kick things off. Here is Brynn Byrne to present the Completionist Award.
Thank you, Aaron. This award is for a show that we would actually want to finish all the episodes of. And that award goes to Ned and Stacy.
Woo!
Woohoo!
Yeah, I agree with that. That winner, that's a good pick.
Now, Barry's going to present our next award.
This award goes to the best paranormal character, which could be an alien, a ghost, etc. And the winner is the girl from Free Spirit.
What was the character's name?
Who cares? Aaron?
All right. And the award for the Schlubbiest Dad goes to Gene Wilder in Something Wilder.
He was schlubby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he wore shorts too much.
Ugh. Brynn is up next to present the bowling trophy for Best Blue Collar Character or Show.
Yes, so this prestigious honor goes to a show or a character that really typifies working class Americana, and that goes to basically everyone in Queens from the show Working Girl. And in Working Girl, you might all remember that they substituted pool for bowling. So that's what, made them eligible for this category.
Oh, very controversial choice.
Yes. And here is Barry Helmer to present the award for Best Set Design.
And the award for Best Set Design goes to Everything's Relative. The one with Jason Alexander. It had a big old loft.
With those weird columns and pillars and...
Were they Corinthian?
Yeah,
Levels.
Levels. And I'm going to present the Participation Award. This is an award that, of course, goes to a show that basically just showed up and we haven't talked much about since. Last year, it went to Big Wave Dave's. And the winner is... Sibs.
I don't remember that at all.
All right, so we now have to get to a category that is a new category for this season. It's the Best Vinny. And that, of course, is, the best version of the Matt LeBlanc character from not one, but two Married with Children spin-offs. And the winner is Vinny Verducci, but Vinny Verducci in Vinny and Bobby.
Ah.
A big disappointment for Top of the Heap fans.
Yeah. This next award is for the A-lister who leveled up. We had some interesting entrants this year. We had George Clooney in Baby Talk. We had Hilary Swank in Camp Wilder. And we had the winner of the award, Sandy Bullock for Working Girl.
Wow. Well deserved. Well deserved.
A well-deserved honor.
Longtime listener of the show, Sandra Bullock. We hear you and we love you.
Now, here's a very important award, the Resilience Award. This is given to a woman who has to put up with a toxic male, something that most of these shows were eligible for. And the winner is Gloria from the show Gloria.
Ah, Gloria. Yeah. All the men on that show did suck.
Okay, and so for our next category, we have the Best Betty White, because there's always a show with Betty White.
Yes, every year there will be a Best Betty White.
And this year, the winner of the Best Betty White is Betty White in Maybe This Time.
Yeah.
Because basically she carried that show.
Woo! And this next award goes to the Best Everything's Relative. Now remember, there were two Everything's Relatives. And the award goes to Everything's Relative. The one with Jeffrey Tambor. Not the one with Jason Alexander. The winner is the one without Jason Alexander. Way!
Yes, that Everything's Relative is from 1999.
This is the first award for 1999's Everything's Relative.
And the next award goes to the Baddest Badaptation. Now, of course, this was something that we introduced in the second season. Our Badaptations are, of course, sitcoms based on extremely successful feature films. And the TWASie goes to Ferris Bueller.
Ooh, rough.
Yeah, that was not a good adaptation.
No, it was not.
Ferris Bueller was a sociopath in this version.
A less likable one, at least.
Yeah. And the next award is another very, very special award. This TWASie goes to the Hunkiest Deadbeat. And this year, I'm happy to present that award to Craig Ferguson in Maybe This Time.
Oh, what a hunky deadbeat.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was a dreamy
What a
guy.
slab of beef.
I could listen to him read the Scottish phone book all day.
Yeah. Just in a plaid shirt, slightly unbuttoned with a white undershirt underneath it.
Yeah.
It's all you need in life.
Yeah.
And now, for a very special treat, joining us live via satellite, still on his book tour, Mr. Anthony Producer.
Live via satellite? What are you talking about, kid? It's a Zoom call.
Zoom.
That's what I said, Zoom. The thing we do when the skip isn't working.
Skype.
Right. So what's with the satellite?
I was just trying to add a little showmanship. You know, when they have presenters who can't make it to the ceremony.
Kid, have you ever actually been to an award show?
As a matter of fact, I have.
What does all this have to do with...
All right. Just read the card we sent you.
All right. This award we call the Mr. Producer Golden Pickle Award. Ha! That's funny. This award is given out to the series that most closely resembles the antics of everyone's favorite 80s producer, Mr. Producer. Hey, that's me.
That's you. Open the other envelope.
I know what I'm doing. I'm no Lori Petty.
What?
He means Warren Beatty.
Right. What I say. And the winner is the famous Teddy Z. I remember that one. That's a great little series. It reminds me of the time that
See you
me
next
and...
season, Mr. P. And that concludes the second annual TWASies Awards.
Woo!
Now, I have a few interesting facts based on the listenership of our second season episodes. So both Everything's Relative episodes have the exact same number of plays as each other.
Freaky.
Also, both Vinny Verducci, Matt LeBlanc-based Married with Children spin-off episodes have the exact same number of plays as each other.
Freaky.
Well, sure, you left it on a cliffhanger. You gotta come back.
And there are 2 other episodes that we released back to back that have the exact same number of plays as each other. But these ones don't have any direct, obvious thematic connection. But can either of you guess which ones?
No.
I don't even remember the episodes that we did.
Well, fortuitously to the Participation Award and the Golden Pickle Award, it's the famous Teddy Z and Sibs.
Oh, yeah. Those were... You know, it's funny, though, because, like, at least the famous Teddy Z, I remember a fair bit. I mean, I guess we did rewatch. We did another episode for Christmas.
Yeah, we did a Christmas episode.
We've referenced it a lot.
He's the man to see. What a theme.
Yeah. It's wild, like, how much we've covered this season. I'm
Yes.
very, it was another really, really fun season. I'm looking forward to more. And yeah, I mean, thanks everybody. Like, I hope this was enough fanfare for to close out this season.
I think it was. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
This was fun. We've had a lot of laughs.
No, don't bring that back.
Good callback. Good callback.
I mean, you know,
That's a first season callback.
That's an Easter egg from your earlier episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, thank you everybody out there who's been like tuning in and listening to our takes on these very obscure and random TV shows. We've really enjoyed bringing you so much content.
We really appreciate all of you who listen, seriously.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It's awesome. And I appreciate both of you so much. It's such a blast getting together and dishing out.
Promised myself I wouldn't cry.
And yeah, I would say we will go on some sort of like little mini break so we can prepare even more awesome episodes for you all. So we'll see you soon.
Thank you everybody for listening. Thanks everybody out there who leaves reviews, who sends us emails, who comments on our social media posts, anybody who sends us recommendations for show picks. Just, thank you so much for engaging with us. by all means, send us more.
Keep it coming. Yeah.
Leave us voicemails.
We will get better about responding to that stuff.
No promises on that. No promises.
We love to
on
hear
that.
from you. If you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please rate and review if you haven't already. It really helps us out.
Yeah, and if you hate it, like tell your friends about it because they might listen to it, and that'll get us some extra listens. So
well,
right
I was
on.
gonna say keep it to yourselves, but that's right.
No, I mean it's all gravy. That's what this said.
And on that note, cut to credits.
Cut to
What
credits.
Credits? What was I supposed to do? You were pointing.
Just
at
say
me.
the word credits.
Credits.
That Was a Show is created and hosted by Brynn Byrne, Andrew Barry Helmer, and myself, Aaron Yeger. It's a production of Radio Gizmo in Toronto, Canada. Subscribe, rate, review, and share. Follow us on Instagram and tell your friends about it. That Was a Show?
Radio Gizmo.